There's a point where watching the world stops being natural and starts feeling heavy. You try to stay aware, to notice everything, but the harder you look, the less alive things seem. Then one day, without effort, you stop. You stop analyzing the faces around you, the noise of the room, even your own thoughts. In that pause, something changes. The space feels sharper, quieter, almost aware. It's as if reality has been waiting for you to stop managing it so it could show its own intelligence. This is the threshold where observation ends and genuine presence begins, when the world no longer needs you to watch it to be real. Most people believe that awareness is a form of control. You pay attention to what's happening, you gather information, you stay alert. And by doing so, you think you're shaping reality, keeping chaos at bay. But observation used as control is not awareness. It's tension disguised as clarity. You scan the world for meaning, yet the act of constant scanning creates a distance between you and what you want to understand. You start living as if life were a screen that needs your focus to function, when in truth, it operates perfectly well without your interference. The illusion of control begins with a subtle assumption that things become real only when you notice them. You walk into a room, and because you're there, you think you're the one bringing attention to it, animating it with your awareness. But reality does not depend on your gaze. It is already alive, already unfolding, even in the corners your eyes never reach. When you try to hold it, shape it, or predict it, you actually narrow your field of perception. You replace the living flow of experience with a mental model, one that is smaller, stiffer, and mostly concerned with protecting your sense of control. The human mind was trained for survival, not for truth. It constantly calculates, compares, anticipates. It tries to turn the unknown into something manageable. This instinct once kept us alive, but now it often isolates us. We observe not to see, but to confirm what we already believe. Every glance becomes a search for proof that our world is still stable, that we still understand what's going on. And when something defies that understanding, we feel threatened, so we analyze harder, trying to regain control. The result is paradoxical. The more we observe, the less we perceive. Think about how you watch a sunset. The first few seconds can be breathtaking, but soon the mind intervenes. It starts comparing how today's color differs from yesterday's, whether the light will last if you should take a photo before it fades. In that moment, the living connection between you and the world disappears. You've turned a direct experience into an object for evaluation. The act of observing has become a mechanism of control, and in that control, presence dissolves. True perception doesn't happen through analysis. It happens through allowance, a readiness to be touched by what's there without filtering it through thought. Yet that kind of openness feels vulnerable, almost unsafe, because it removes the illusion that we are in charge. We confuse control with security, but control is just a habit of fear. We cling to it because it gives structure to uncertainty. The irony is that it's precisely this grip that blinds us to the deeper order already present in every moment. There is a difference between noticing and watching. Noticing is soft. It doesn't demand. It registers what arises and lets it pass. Watching, on the other hand, is filled with effort. It seeks to define, to keep track, to interpret. Most of the time, we are not truly present. We are managing attention like an asset, spending it carefully, hoping it will buy us clarity. But clarity doesn't come from control. It comes when control fades, when we stop trying to organize the flow of life into categories we can predict. You can see this pattern even in your smallest daily moments. You're having a conversation, and instead of listening, part of your mind is already preparing a response, reading the other person's tone, anticipating how the exchange might end. You're not really in that moment. You're overseeing it, like a director making sure the scene unfolds according to plan. This constant management exhausts the nervous system and dulls the senses. Life starts to feel repetitive, not because it is, but because you're too busy observing it from the outside to be touched by its changes. To perceive truly, you must let go of the idea that awareness means supervision. Awareness is not a flashlight you hold, it's the atmosphere itself. You don't need to shine it on things. It's already there, surrounding everything, including you. The moment you stop trying to use it, it begins to show you what's real without your interference. Control contracts, perception expands. This shift is not about passivity, it's about trust. When you allow reality to unfold without imposing your mental lens, you start noticing subtleties that were invisible before, the pauses between sounds, the quiet intelligence in timing, the way events seem to synchronize without your effort. You begin to understand that perception is a collaboration, not a command. The world does not need your control to reveal itself. It only needs your stillness. The illusion of control keeps you trapped in a feedback loop of effort. The more you try to be aware, the more noise you generate, and the more noise you generate, the less you can hear what's actually happening. It's like stirring clear water to see what's beneath the surface. All you get is turbulence. Only when you stop stirring does the reflection become visible. That is the quiet paradox of observation. When you cease to manage it, perception deepens on its own. The world begins to move toward you, offering details you could never have captured by force. Control separates, receptivity connects, and in that connection you start to glimpse a different kind of intelligence, one that does not come from effort, but from surrender. There is a silence that doesn't belong to the absence of sound. It's not about a quiet room or the end of noise outside you. It's the kind of silence that appears when thought itself softens, when the constant inner commentary slows down just enough for something else to emerge. Most people never reach that stillness because they confuse silence with inactivity. But inner silence is not empty. It is full of awareness that no longer struggles to interpret everything it encounters. In this silence, the sense of separation begins to fade. You no longer feel like a single observer looking at a separate world. Instead, you notice that awareness itself seems to have weight, depth, and presence. The boundary between what you call you and what you call the world starts to blur. For a brief moment, you might even feel as if reality is gazing back, not metaphorically, but as a direct experience of mutual recognition. Something in you quiets, and in that quiet existence acknowledges itself through your stillness. This reversal of perception can be disorienting at first. The mind, trained to analyze, searches for an explanation. It wonders whether this is imagination, whether you're projecting meaning onto a random moment. But when you look closely, you realize there is no mental narrative to support it. There's just an undeniable sense that the atmosphere has become aware of you, not as a character, but as consciousness itself. The more you resist naming it, the clearer it becomes. What happens in these moments isn't mystical in the exaggerated sense, it's natural. Your nervous system finally stops filtering reality through fear and expectation. When that filtering quiets, the feedback loop between you and the environment becomes visible. You're not generating awareness, you're participating in a field of awareness that was always present. Reality begins to reflect your state of being with astonishing precision. If your mind is agitated, the world seems fragmented. If your mind is still, the world appears whole. Inner silence acts as a mirror because it removes distortion. Normally, perception is filled with noise, judgments, plans, memories. All that internal movement projects onto what you see. The moment the noise drops, perception clears. And what remains is not just visual clarity, but a deep coherence. Things seem to organize themselves effortlessly. Conversations flow with timing that feels almost orchestrated. Events align without your planning. It's as if the intelligence of life begins to coordinate directly with the calm center of your awareness. This doesn't mean that silence gives you control over reality. It means you've stepped out of the illusion that control was ever necessary. Reality doesn't need to be managed, it needs to be met. The still mind doesn't manipulate outcomes. It perceives patterns that were invisible before, and in perceiving them, it naturally moves in harmony with them. That is what people sometimes describe as being guided. It isn't an external voice giving instructions. It's the clarity that arises when you stop filling the space with your own noise. Try to recall a moment when you were so deeply at peace that time seemed to slow down. Maybe you were walking alone at night, or sitting near water, or watching someone you love without thinking about what to say next. In those moments, you weren't trying to observe anything. You were simply there, and the world around you seemed unusually vivid, as if every detail carried a quiet attention of its own. That's the beginning of being observed by reality. It's not supernatural. It's coherence. Your system, your environment, and your consciousness are operating in sync. Science might describe this in terms of neural coherence or physiological entrainment. When internal noise reduces, your brain and body synchronize, and that synchronization extends into your surroundings. You become more sensitive to subtle cues, the tone in someone's voice, the shift in air pressure before a storm, the intuition that tells you to pause before speaking. What seems like the world noticing you is, in fact, your nervous system attuning to the greater field it belongs to. But subjectively, it feels like being seen, because in that unity, there is no outside left. Inner silence isn't something you achieve once and keep. It's a relationship. It appears whenever you stop feeding the machinery of thought that insists on knowing. The silence grows the moment you stop demanding certainty. It's not fragile, but it can't coexist with constant self-interference. That's why the art of being observed begins with humility, the willingness to let go of mental ownership over every perception. There's a quiet intelligence moving through reality that is always available, but it reveals itself only when we stop announcing ourselves. When you're silent inside, you're not sending out mental ripples of judgment or resistance, and the world responds to that calm the same way a body of water reflects a still sky. The reflection is not just clear, it's mutual. Existence is looking through every surface, including yours, and when you're quiet enough, you can feel that gaze. At first, this can evoke unease, because being observed feels vulnerable. Yet that vulnerability is the precise condition in which awareness becomes whole. To be seen by reality is to let go of defense. It means you trust life enough to stop hiding behind mental commentary. The silence that follows is not passive, it's receptive, alive, and responsive. It allows everything to be exactly as it is, including you. When the inner noise quiets, you realize that perception was never one-directional. Observation has always been reciprocal. What you call awareness and what you call the world are two movements of the same intelligence, meeting in the field of silence. That meeting point, the stillness behind thought, is where reality finally begins to recognize itself through your presence. You've been taught that results come from effort, from doing more, pushing harder, keeping focus no matter what. That belief runs so deep that even your search for awareness becomes a performance of control. You try to meditate better, to be more mindful, to watch yourself more precisely, as if presence was something to achieve. But presence doesn't answer to effort, it answers to coherence. The universe, or whatever name you give to the intelligence behind life, doesn't react to what you force. It reflects what you are in the quiet space beneath the effort. This reflection is not mystical or symbolic, it's measurable in your everyday interactions. When you are tense, the world around you mirrors tension. People become defensive, timing feels off, small problems multiply. When you are calm and open, things seem to organize themselves. Conversations flow, opportunities align, and outcomes arrive without the familiar friction. Nothing magical happens. What changes is the quality of your participation. You've stopped acting against reality and started resonating with it. The universe is responsive, not obedient. It doesn't follow commands. It tunes itself to the frequency of your awareness. That's why forcing things rarely leads to clarity. Effort carries a vibration of separation. It implies that the world is over there, and you must move it from here. But when you are truly present, that distance collapses. You're no longer pushing the current, you are part of the current. The movement that follows is not random. It's intelligent, self-adjusting, and exact. You can sense this in moments when you act from alignment instead of pressure. Think of a time you spoke honestly without rehearsing, or when you made a sudden decision that felt unexplainably right. Those choices seemed effortless, but their impact was precise. That's coherence in motion. The external world mirrored the internal state you were in. Not your plans, not your strategies, but your quality of attention. This reflection becomes even clearer when you observe how small shifts in your inner state alter your environment. You walk into a room filled with tension, and if you carry inner noise, that tension multiplies. But if you enter with genuine stillness, Not forced calm, but a quiet acceptance. The energy starts to regulate itself. People lower their voices. The rhythm changes. The air feels lighter. You didn't say or do anything special. Your presence adjusted the field. Science describes similar patterns in resonance and coherence. When two systems vibrate at compatible frequencies, they synchronize. When one is stable, it can stabilize others around it. Your body, brain, and nervous system are constantly broadcasting signals, not mystical ones, but electrical and behavioral cues that shape the environment. Calmness and chaos are both contagious, but only one creates space for clarity. When you settle into coherence, the universe doesn't need you to direct it. It organizes around that stability. The deeper truth is that life is not reacting to your wishes. It's resonating with your inner condition. If your awareness is fragmented, reality appears chaotic because it's mirroring your fragmentation. If your awareness is whole, life reflects that wholeness. This is not moral law, it's energetic logic. The field around you amplifies whatever you carry most consistently. That's why pretending to be calm doesn't work. The reflection responds to what's actually present beneath appearances. You can test this in real time. The next time something goes wrong, a delay, a disagreement, a plan falling apart, resist the instinct to fix it immediately. Instead, take one conscious breath and sense your internal state. Notice the urge to control, the tightening in the body, the racing thoughts. Then do nothing for a moment. Don't try to think your way through it. Simply remain with what is. Often within that pause, reality begins to rearrange itself. A message arrives, someone shifts their tone, or the problem resolves in a direction you couldn't have predicted. What changed was not the situation, it was the observer's frequency. This principle also explains why you can't manipulate life with surface positivity. Pretending to be grateful, forcing optimism, or repeating affirmations without real presence only adds another layer of noise. The universe doesn't respond to slogans, it responds to coherence. Authentic gratitude has a vibration of truth because it's not manufactured. It arises naturally when you stop resisting what is. The same applies to love, clarity, and peace. They are not rewards, they are states that reality reflects once resistance falls away. You begin to notice that your effort to control was never necessary. Reality is not random, it is relational. It's in constant dialogue with your state of being. That dialogue is happening whether you acknowledge it or not. The question is not whether the universe is listening, it always is. The question is what it hears from the tone of your presence. When you are anxious, it echoes uncertainty. When you are open, it echoes possibility. This doesn't mean you should stop acting or making choices. It means the quality of your actions matters more than their volume. Doing less from a coherent state often produces more alignment than doing more from confusion. The world is not impressed by how hard you try. It's moved by how real you are. Reality is an exact mirror. It never lies and it never flatters. Eventually, you start to live differently. You stop chasing outcomes and begin cultivating conditions, not external ones, but internal coherence. You realize that presence is not passive, it's participatory. The less effort you apply to manage reality, the more precise your influence becomes. Not because you gained power, but because you stopped dividing yourself. Life starts responding not to your wishes, but to your wholeness. And here is where reflection becomes communication. When you are present, reality doesn't just mirror you, it speaks. It guides through subtle timing, through the rhythm of events, through the emotional tone of encounters. It shows you what you need to see, not what you want to see. That's the purest form of dialogue between consciousness and existence. So pause for a moment. Look back on your recent days and ask yourself, when did life feel like resistance? And when did it feel like rhythm? The difference wasn't the circumstances, it was your state of presence. If you understand that, you understand the essence of conscious reflection. If this idea resonates with you, that life mirrors not your effort but your presence, write in the comments, I choose coherence over control. Let that sentence be a reminder each time you feel the urge to force what can only unfold. At a certain point, presence stops being something you practice and becomes something that happens through you. The shift is subtle but unmistakable. The mind no longer claims ownership over awareness. You're not observing reality anymore. Reality is observing itself through you. This is the quiet surrender of the observer, when the separation between subject and object dissolves, and what remains is participation without interference. Surrender doesn't mean giving up or withdrawing from life. It means releasing the reflex to manage how life unfolds. You start noticing how much of your attention has been spent trying to control outcomes, protect your image, or anticipate what's next. That vigilance feels like strength, but it's actually a form of tension, a constant resistance to what's already happening. When that resistance collapses, reality doesn't fall apart. It becomes luminous, precise, and unexpectedly intimate. This surrender is not an act of will. You can't force yourself to let go. Forcing is the opposite of surrender. What actually happens is a recognition, the realization that control was never real to begin with. You've been steering a wheel that isn't connected to the engine. Once you see that, your grip softens naturally. You stop trying to be the center of perception and begin to experience yourself as part of a wider intelligence that moves through everything. In this state, awareness doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the whole. You are both inside and outside the flow of events. The voice in your head that used to narrate every moment becomes quiet, not because it has been silenced, but because it's no longer needed. The world communicates directly now, through sensations, timing, and intuitive knowing that doesn't require language. What used to feel like coincidence begins to feel like correspondence. The surrender of the observer reveals something profound. Reality is not waiting for your attention to exist. It's not an object you stand apart from. It's a living field that includes you. Every gesture, every breath, every decision you make ripples through it and returns to you in 1,000 forms. You realize that the boundary between you and the world is as thin as thought. When thought pauses, that boundary disappears, and what remains is wholeness, life aware of itself. This kind of perception changes how you move through the world. You no longer act from habit or anxiety. You act from listening. The guidance that arises in this listening is not moral or prescriptive. It's immediate and practical. It shows you the next movement, one step at a time. Sometimes it says, wait. Sometimes it says, speak. Sometimes it moves through your body before your mind even catches up. That is life in direct conversation with itself, using your presence as the channel. When you surrender the position of the observer, life's intelligence becomes visible in ordinary places. The pattern of people crossing your path, the pauses in conversation, the sudden change of weather, all of it begins to feel meaningful, not because you're reading signs, but because you sense the coherence behind them. The mirror of reality is alive. It's not reflecting images, but intentions, emotional frequencies, and silent questions you didn't know you were asking. This realization can bring a deep calm, but also humility. You start to see how much of your suffering came from the belief that you were separate, an independent observer, trying to make sense of a world outside yourself. Once that idea dissolves, effort gives way to participation. You stop trying to shape life and instead allow yourself to be shaped by it. The old rhythm of doing, fixing, and achieving gives way to a quieter rhythm of noticing, responding, and being moved. Surrender also reveals that truth doesn't need defense. When you are no longer attached to being the observer, there's nothing left to prove. You don't need to persuade others of what you've seen or protect your insights from challenge. The truth becomes self-evident through experience. You see it in the coherence of your relationships, in the precision of timing, in the subtle peace that remains even when things don't go your way. This peace doesn't depend on external calm. It can exist in the middle of noise, movement, or uncertainty. It's the peace of not being separate. The mirror of reality reflects every emotion, every change, but its surface remains still. You become that mirror, aware of everything, attached to nothing. From there, even the most ordinary act, like breathing or listening, feels sacred. The surrender of the observer marks the end of inner negotiation. You no longer ask whether you're doing it right, whether you're spiritual enough, or whether the universe is responding. The question dissolves because the separation that asked it no longer exists. Life doesn't respond to you. It moves through you. The sense of, I am observing becomes I am being observed. And finally, observation is happening. This is where awareness stops being personal and becomes universal. It doesn't mean you lose individuality. It means individuality becomes transparent. You still act, think, and create, but there's no struggle to maintain identity. You recognize yourself as a temporary expression of something vast, the same intelligence that beats your heart and turns the planets. In that recognition, humility becomes natural. Gratitude stops being a mental exercise and becomes a reflex of perception. You can look at the simplest moment, a breath, a passing face, a sound, and feel it observing you back, confirming your existence without words. This is the living mirror, not an external force watching over you, but the unified awareness experiencing itself from countless points of view. When surrender deepens, life no longer feels like something happening to you or through you. It simply is. The mirror and what it reflects are one continuous movement. There's no need to interpret it, only to live it, fully, quietly, and without resistance. In that space, reality is not a stage, and you are not a spectator. You are the scene, the witness, and the reflection all at once. When the need to observe fades, what remains is clarity without effort. Life no longer feels like a scene you must understand. It becomes something intimate, aware, and responsive. You realize the world was never outside your perception. It was waiting for your stillness to show itself. In that quiet recognition, separation ends. You're not trying to connect anymore. You are the connection. If you felt that shift, if this reflection reached you in any way, like this video and write "I am seen" in the comments, so I know you stayed until the end. And if this space speaks to you, subscribe. There's more waiting to be discovered from where silence begins to see.